Hey guys, Jordan here with VFX Vault again, and today we're going to be diving into some UI based elements. So let's show what we got. If we press E, you see it turns on this kind of Wheel of Fortune spinning wheel, and it spins for a while and then it gives us a result. So it lands on 10,000 and we get 10,000. We can spin it again and wait for a few seconds, and now we get 1,000. So in this tutorial we're going to go over how we can set up this UI element, how we can get the result out of it, and also how we can make it spin. Say we might only want it to spin for 1 second or 2 seconds, and then slow it down to stop and get the result. So let's get into it. So if you're just looking to download the course files, they're available for free at vfx-vault.com. All you have to do is head along, sign up and make a free account. I'll leave a link to the product down below. If you have any issues, you can also join the Discord, which I'll leave a link down below, and you can send me a message. Also, if you want to support the channel, there is a paid version of this asset. It's got a lot more customization. You can customize the color, the size. It also comes with a glowing background and a bunch of extra verse code for all different kinds of random and rarity kind of rolling, so that you can make one section of the wheel maybe more rare than the others, plus a bunch of other extra features. So if you want to support the channel, please head along and buy that, or check out all of the other products that we have for sale on vfx-vault.com. Thank you so much, and now on to the tutorial. So coming into a blank project here, this is just a completely fresh blank project. We're going to import some images, build a material, and we're going to then set up the verse device. So if you're just looking for the assets, you can download them in the link that I've provided below. There'll be a free version of this asset, and there'll be a paid version with a bunch more functionality and some extra cool features for customizing the material and such. So if you want to support the channel, check out the paid version as well. So first things first is we're going to import some of the assets, and we're going to set up a material. So we'll start by making a new folder. We'll just call this folder materials for now. Or actually, let's just rename it. I think UI is a better one. We'll open it up, and we'll just drag in these two textures. Again, they'll be available with the source files, the asset files, and the link below. We'll call this one T_Fortune wheel. And wait for it to rename, and we'll call this one T_arrow. And then we'll right click and make a new material once that's finished updating. Okay, so new material, and we'll call this M_Fortune wheel UI, and we'll open that up. So coming into our material here, we just want to change it first of all to masked, and then instead of surface we want user interface, because this is going to be a UI element. We're going to spawn this as a UI element through verse, and we want to drag in our textures. So we've got our wheel texture, so we can plug that into our final color, and we'll plug the alpha into the opacity mask, and now you can see it's masked it out really nicely. And then we want to go custom rotator, and we'll plug that in here, and in the custom rotator we'll just plug in a normal texture coordinate, and we'll call this one as wheel rotation. We'll hold S and click to make a new scalar. Wheel rotation, we'll plug it into the rotation angle. So now you see as we spin that, our wheel is spinning, but because the texture is tiling, we're seeing copies of the texture in the corner. So what we can do is we select the texture sample, and we'll just go clamp. So now it shouldn't tile. So we've got our spinning wheel, perfect. Now we want to add a little arrow at the top to kind of signify where it's landed. It's going to be the arrow. So we want to go add our final color together, but then you see it's quite large, so we're going to need to move it. and it also, there is a black outline that we have to create. So the alpha texture is a bit wider than the actual color texture. So what we can do is, I think we go subtract subtract the alpha, and then we, nope, wrong way. I think it's like this. Subtract the alpha and subtract and then invert, I think. Subtract the alphas, invert, and then we want to saturate here, and we multiply these together. No, that's not quite right either. Okay, so after a bit of tweaking, sorry, we want to subtract the image from its original alpha, and then we saturate that, and then we subtract that from our the two color channels added together, so we get this nice black outline around our so we get we want to add those two together, so we get this nice black outline around our arrow. So this isn't very usable at the moment, right? We've got this huge arrow and it's kind of taking up the whole space. So what we need to do is we need to move it. So we go texture coordinate, and we want an add and a multiply, and then we drag there and we hold S and click twice, and again, and we'll call this one arrow scale X, and we'll just copy this, and arrow scale Y, and over here arrow offset X, and arrow offset Y. So we want to swap these around, and we'll plug, and then we'll put in append to vector, and we'll plug in these two, and here, and another append here for our offset. Okay, so we'll set the scale obviously to 1, and then we need to offset it. So we can use the arrow offset Y to move it up, but then you see again it starts to tile, so we need to do the same thing for the sampler source. So we need to set it to clamped, so now it's not tiling, and then we can set the scale down to something small. So we turn the scale up, so a bigger number, and then we get a smaller scale, and we want to just move it over, so across in the X. So that's about -4 is right, -0.4, and then up just a tiny bit. Perfect. So now we've got this arrow, and when we spin our wheel, obviously the arrow stays still as we want it. Awesome. So that should be all we need for the material. I'll just quickly show the whole thing so you guys can see exactly what we need. Okay, and we'll save that. And now we need to make a verse device. So we come back into our overview here, we go our verse explorer, and then we right click, add new verse file, and we'll call this Fortune wheel, and we'll just go create. And if we just go verse, build verse, or we open the verse here and come down to, here it is, Fortune wheel. So you can see in our asset digest we have the M Fortune wheel material, so we can access it, and then in the Fortune wheel here we're going to have to write some code. So So first what we want to do is add a couple variables at the top here. So we can go at editable spin wheel button device equals button device. So we're adding a new button device because we're going to press this button and it's going to activate the wheel. And then we have another variable. We go at editable spin duration, and we'll set this to just a float that equals 5.0. And then lastly, what I think we need is to make a variable for our material. So we go variable spin wheel material, and we need to get the material from our asset digest. So it'll be this one here, M Fortune wheel material. Copy that, and it'll go, we need to just put UI dot in front of it, and we instantiate this as a new material. So we copy this here and put the little brackets on the end, so it's instantiating a new material, creating a new material. So we'll get rid of this. So on begin, we just need to listen for, we need to get our spin wheel button, and we just need to listen for the interacted event, interacted with event dot subscribe, and then we're going to make a new function called spawn update wheel, because we want it as an async function because we're going to be spawning a loop, right? And then we go spawn update wheel, and we want to pass in an agent, and we go void, so don't need to return anything, and then we're going to spawn an async function update spin wheel agent, and then update spin wheel agent. We need to pass in the agent, and we also need it as suspense because this is an async function. We want it running a loop, so we go void because we don't need to return anything. Or we could here maybe put in a return of when the wheel is finished, but we won't be getting into that in our tutorial. So next, the first thing we need to do is we need to get the player's UI, right? Because we're going to be accessing, adding elements to the player's UI. So we need to go if in player is equal to player agent and player UI is getting the get player UI in player. Okay, so we need to use the verse specifier. So we need to get access to the UI. So we're getting the player from the agent, obviously the agent that presses the button, the player that presses the button, we're getting the player, and then we are getting that player's UI. And then we need to make a new canvas of type canvas, and we'll call this new widget, we'll call this Fortune wheel widget, and we want to make it a material block because we're going to be spawning that material that we made before, equals material block, and we set the default image as the material. It sounds a bit strange, like you say image, but it's actually material. So you go spin wheel material, and then the default, I think, is that enough? That should be enough, so we'll leave it like that. And then we go to, we want to add this to our canvas, so we need to give it a few settings. So we go new canvas dot add widget, and we'll go canvas slot, and we want to add a few options here when we add it to our widget. So what's the widget that we're adding? We're going to be adding the widget that we just created, the fortune wheel widget. Next is the anchors. So where on our screen is this widget actually anchored? What does it move around? And we're just going to copy in here. You see the minimum and maximums of vector 2 is 0.5 and 0.5. So we're anchoring it in the middle of our screen. And then for the offsets, so it says offsets, but for the right and the bottom, that's the scale, and the offset is here, the left and the top. So the left and the top is positioning, so we're minus 720 in the X, so we're just moving it across the screen to the left, and up 200, negative 200 is up 200 in the Y. And then the alignment, and then the right and the bottom is the size, the scale of the element. So right 400 and bottom 400 is 400 by 400, so it's keeps it nice and square. And then we're just going to set this one here, size to content is false, and the Z order is also 0. And then we need to just bring this back a bit. So the anchors, saying it doesn't quite like the anchors. What's the issue here? Yes, so for the vector 2, we need to specify using spatial math, right? So I'll put that in here. And then again, it was anchors, not anchor, anchors. There you go. And then after that, we need to make another function where we go player UI.add widget, new canvas. Add widget with a capital W. Okay, so what we're doing here is we're creating a new widget with this material that we've created, and then we're placing it into our canvas, and then we're putting the canvas on the player's UI, so it's going to show up on the screen. Cool. So if we save and we run that, it should, when we press the button, make the wheel show up. So we'll just go File, we'll save all, make sure you're saving, we'll go Build Verse Code, should be fine, and then we'll launch the session. I'll come back once the session has launched. So just before we launch the session, I forgot that we need to drag the device into the game. Come over to details, we've got the spin duration here, but that doesn't do anything yet, and the spin wheel button. So we actually haven't put the button in to activate the device. So here, just drag the button in, we'll put it next to the character spawner, move it up a little bit, and we make sure in the device, in the world, we activate the button. We sort of link in the button, and then we can push these changes to our game so that we can push the button. So I'll pause the stream here. So I'll pause the video here and come back once we've loaded in these changes. So back in our game now, we come over to our button, we press E, and you see now the wheel spawns in our UI. Perfect. So the next thing we need to do is actually make it spin. So how can we do that? So if we come back to verse, and I think it was this one here. Cool. So what we need to do is, just bringing up the code on my other screen, we need to set a couple variables. So after the if statement runs here, what we need to do is set up a couple variables. So we have the variable spin duration and other. So what we can also do is put all of these variables into their own function, but just for the sake of simplicity, I'm going to just have it all in one function for now. And we set the float to say, the new spin duration, or as we want it as the spin duration here. So new spin duration, and then we want the variable spin speed. So how fast is the wheel actually going to be spinning? Equals 0.033, and spin duration is obviously how long is the wheel going to be spinning for, and var spin time to stop is another float. So once we want the wheel to stop, slow down, how long is it going to take for it to actually stop? So we'll go 1.5. So it'll spin for 5 seconds because we set that in our spin duration. And what we can do actually here is go new and new, and then we can set these as editables that we can we'll copy these up here. So spin speed, so we can edit these on the device itself, and we'll go spin time to stop, and we'll set the values properly. So 0.033 and 1.5, and we'll just move this one up here, and we will copy them down here, and spin speed. Cool. So the next thing we need to do is also just get the values. We don't need the initial values because they're being set here, right? So what we can do is now we'll jump into a loop. So loop set spin, set new spin duration. So every time this function or this loop ticks, we're going to be taking 0.033, or we're going to be sort of counting down the timer, so the timer, the duration. So if spin duration is less than 0, so once we finish the spin duration, we need to set new spin spin time to stop. Minus equals 0.33. So it's the same thing again. Once we've counted down our spin duration, we start counting down our time to stop, and then we want to set the actual rotation of our wheel. So go set spin wheel material, which is should be here. Yes, spin wheel material dot. And now we need to access the variable inside of our material, and the variable is wheel rotation. Dot wheel rotation is plus equal to spin speed actually, before we do that, and then we're just going to put in a break so that it stops being read. So we'll go if new spin time to stop is less than or equal to 0, then we break, and we just want to come down out of the if statements, and we'll put in a sleep 0.033. So it's sleeping 30 times a second every time the server ticks. So outside of the wheel, we're just adding spin speed. So if we just played it now, so I'm going to push the verse code, and you'll see what happens if we just come back into the game and we play it now. Once it updates, we play it now, you see it's just going to start spinning, and it's going to spin forever because we have no way to break the loop, I don't think. No. So what we need to do next is we've got our new spin duration. Spin duration equals 0, set new spin time. So what we need to do is Once our spin duration, our main spin duration has hit 0, then we need to start slowing the wheel down. So it's going to spin for say 5 seconds, and then it's going to take another 1.5 seconds to slow down. So we need to go set spin wheel material, wheel rotation. So we'll get this here, plus equal spin speed times I think it's times new spin time to stop divided by spin time to stop. So what we're doing here is we're getting the normalized value between our time to stop and our spin time, and we're multiplying our spin speed by it. So as the time to stop goes down, so does the multiplier. Our spin speed should slowly slow down. And then we want to put in another if statement here. If new spin time to stop is less than or equal to 0. So once we've finished our time to stop, that last 1.5 seconds, it's going to stop, and we'll just go, for now we'll just go print wheel has stopped. And then I think what we can do is we can turn, sorry, we need to put an else statement in here as well. So we go else spin the wheel. Okay, so just to go over it again, because it's starting to get a little bit confusing. And we'll just put the break in here. So what's happening is we enter the loop. We start counting down our spin duration. So we start counting down, let's say, the 5 seconds for how long our wheel is going to spin for. And if we've reached the end of those 5 seconds, then we move into this section. But if we haven't, so for those first 5 seconds, we're just going to keep spinning the wheel at the normal speed. It's just going to keep spinning and spinning and spinning for those first 5 seconds. So once those first 5 seconds have stopped, we start counting down the time to stop. So that last 1 second, so it's going to take 1 second to slow down and stop. And then we slowly multiply down that spin speed. We multiply down that spin speed, and then once that gets multiplied right down to 0, so it stops spinning. Once that is stopped spinning, then we have the wheel is stopped, and we can break the loop. So we don't need this other if statement here. Break the loop, and we will go verse build, and let's take a look at that now. So it should take about 6.5 seconds for the wheel to stop. Okay, so it spins and it spins and it spins for about 5 seconds. And then it should start slowing down, but I guess I've done something wrong in my code. So let's take another look at it. So I realized where I went wrong. We need to, because we're setting the new spin duration, this new variable that we're creating, and we need to just change it here. So if the new spin duration, which is the one that's actually being updated, is less than or equal to 0 seconds, then we move into this new section where we slow the wheel down. So we go verse build again, and we'll push verse changes, and we'll wait for it to update. And and it's spinning, 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 and after about 5 seconds it should start to slow down. There you go. Cool, the wheel has stopped. And again, we can spin it again. And we get 1000, spin it again one more time and see what we come up with. 100. Cool. So how do we actually get a result out of this? Like, how do we actually tell what the wheel has stopped on, right? So that's what we're going to do next. So next we want to be able to get our result out of it. So we have a wheel. One full rotation in our material is one full rotation of our wheel, and we have 6 sections that it can stop on, right? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sections. So it obviously depends on if your wheel has more or less sections, but the math is all the same depending on how many sections we have. So what we want to do is, once the wheel is stopped, we need to get the result that it stopped on. So we go if fract number. So we need to get the fractional number, and there's no operator or function for frac, unfortunately, in UEFN. So we're just going to have to do it ourselves. So what we can do is get our spin wheel material rotation. Remember that our 0 to 1 is one full rotation, and we want to minus the floor of our spin wheel rotation times 1.0. So what we're doing here is we are getting just the fractional part of our spin. So it's spinned maybe for 5 seconds, 50 seconds, 100 seconds, however long. It might be up to a number, say like, 51.3. We just need that 0.3. So this will return that 0.3. And then we want the result. If result is equal to floor, so we need a floor again. And we get the fract number times 6, because we have 6 sections on our wheel. And what we can do is we'll push this, we'll leave this break out of the ifs here, but we will come back and we can go, the wheel has stopped on, and we'll just get the result here. I'm going to push it in there, so print. Okay, so the wheel has stopped on result. And one more time, we'll push. So keep in mind that in our material as well, like this would be result 0 because we're counting up from 0. So we go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And let's see where we stop. So we come back to our game, we push the wheel, we let it spin, and we wait for it to stop. So the wheel has stopped on 4. So 0, 100 is 0, 500 is 1, 1000 is 2, 2500 is 3, and 10,000 is 4. But how can we get a bit more of a usable result? So one little helpful function we can do here is make a function to actually kind of, I'll just tidy this up a bit here. We can make a function that returns our wheel result. So we'll just call this one wheel result. And we can use a case function. So we want to go result index, and we want that as an int that we need to pass in. We need to set it as transacts, because it's transactional, transacts, and we'll just return a string, but obviously you guys can return other things if you want. And with the result, with the case, we need to pass in the result index. So what case does is you can pass in a value like an int, and then it will pass back, or it will return whichever sort of case or index that we want. So we go 0. So if we go 0 is equal to you win 100. But then you see it says when we hover over, case might fail because it doesn't handle all possible values and it doesn't have a default clause. So we need to put in a default clause just in case we pass in an integer that isn't listed. So what we can do is we go underscore equals arrow no result. But this is only if you say we're going from 0 to 5. If you pass in like 6 or 7 or 8 or 10, then it's going to return this default result. So what we can do then is just copy these for all of the other potential cases that might happen. So we'll go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and you win 500, you win 1,000, you win 2,500, you won 10,000, and then it's 100,000. Cool. So instead of printing out the wheel has stopped on result, what we can do instead is pass in this function wheel result and then pass in result. And now if we build that and go push versus changes, come back into our game and we interact with the wheel, start spinning and starts to slow down, and then there you go. The wheel has stopped. Sorry, because I'm printing off a few more a bit of extra stuff. So we'll just get rid of this wheel has stopped, and we'll set the duration on the print just so we can see it a little bit longer. So we'll go duration equal to say 10 seconds. So the actual print string stays on the screen for 10 seconds, so we can see it before it disappears. And we'll go build, last one. And we come in, we press the button, we get the wheel to spin, slowly slowing down, lands on our result, and it says you win 10,000. Awesome. So this is a really simple setup. I hope it was helpful. There's a lot more you can do with this. Also, if you want just the files, they'll be available down below. A free version will be available. It'll be linked below. There'll also be a paid version that I've built that'll have a lot more functionality. You can set the colors, you can set all the different things and set the images, and it will have a lot more features. But thank you guys so much for watching. If you've got any more suggestions, if you run into any issues, feel free to reach out to me. There's also a link to the Discord down below. And if you guys want to support the channel, please head along to vfx-vault.com to check out more of what we offer. We have a bunch of other stuff, so head along and check that out. Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been Jordan from VFX Vault, and I'll see you in the next one.